Good afternoon, and thank you so much for attending our webinar. This is our first webinar of the new year. Just want to make certain that everyone can see my screen and can hear me. Marissa and Amy, can you?
Can.
Good, fabulous. Well, I want to welcome to all of our attendees. We have a fabulous group of attendees today, and we know how busy your days are, and particularly here with the new year starting. I'm certain coming home back to the office after the holidays, as you probably got a desk full of things to do. So we have a wonderful webinar for you today that really deals with making marketing an entire team effort. And let me see if I can advance this. We're having just a little bit of issues periodically, as we do with GoToMeeting, so maybe we will be fine here. All right. My name is Merrily Orsini, and you can see the information here about me. I've certainly been in the home care industry for a very long time. Excuse me. And I forgot to do my housekeeping, which we normally do, to tell you that this session is being recorded. So many of you are going to ask a question, can you have a copy of the PowerPoint? And we don't send these PowerPoints out, but what we do is we allow you free access to these webinars on our corecubed.com/events website. And so after this webinar, we will upload the recording, and you or anyone that you would like to send it to, you are certainly welcome to view it as many times as you would like, so you can get the information that you need out of it. I have two staff people here with me today, actually my general managers, my managing directors. The first is Marissa Snook, and Marissa has been involved in home care marketing now for over 10 years and runs our very popular Members Only Most program, which is a specific program for the home care industry, and it is a turnkey marketing program. She certainly has a lot of specialties, but she serves as the direct client contact. She maintains an amazing positive attitude, has a wonderful sense of humor, and really manages our Most program and keeps all of us in a very happy note most of the time. And here is Amy Selle. And Amy Selle has a very long history also in marketing. And Amy really is incredibly good at branding and understanding brand essence and in understanding strategies for marketing. So the combination of both those people today on this webinar should make for a very good webinar. We have looked at the questions you've submitted, and hopefully we will address most of those today. If not, at the end of the webinar, you will have the opportunity to ask questions, and you simply go to your screen on the right-hand side and type in your message, and we will try to get to your question. And if we don't get to your question, then what we will do is answer your question after the webinar privately. And we'll also have contact information at the end of this webinar. And you are welcome to reach out to us, contact us in a variety of different ways, however you like to contact people, and we will also respond to that. So without further ado, let me just talk a little bit about the objectives today. This is really talking about extending your marketing footprint throughout your company so that your employees can help you sell your services. And actually understanding marketing can have a positive effect on the people who work for you, because they can also then take a very active role in the positive growth of your company, and also just some information about how first impressions definitely form lasting relationships. So at the end of this webinar, we hope that you will be able to say that we have met these three objectives for you, and that you have gotten some benefit from the time that you have spent with us here today. And first, I want Marissa to talk about marketing, because when someone thinks of marketing and they're in the home care industry, what is it that normally comes to mind?
Well, what I normally hear is marketing is how to get past the gatekeeper and how to close the deal. And that is definitely something that you hear a lot because people get confused between what is sales and what is marketing. I always like to do a very simple, probably oversimplified definition of marketing as the tools that you bring to help close those sales. That's something that is very concrete, that is easy to understand. But marketing is so much more than that as well. And we're going to talk more about how to tell your story, that part of marketing today.
And Amy, this is your area of expertise. You want to just touch a little bit on the bigger, higher level, what marketing is?
Sure. Yeah, to build on to what Marissa said, marketing is really who you are as a business. And a lot of that starts with the owners of the company and why you got into the business, why you're in a business that is designed to serve people and help them. It's not just the what you do. What you do is very obvious when you're in the home care industry, but it's the why you do what you do. And you know, that is very important to the customers who are making choices about who to do business with. You know, why are you in this business is going to speak to them. That is part of your story. And in the home care industry, marketing and your brand is about helping people, and there's more ways to help them than just offering services. There's the education that you provide to help them make good choices along their buying path and after they've become your customers. So we're going to keep delving into those things as we go on today.
And I just want to add that marketing is also measurable. You should be able to tell from the efforts that you are expending in marketing if you are getting results. So there are ways, and it's not a direct one-on-one, but there definitely are ways to measure. Is the phone ringing? Are your revenues increasing? Are people inquiring more about your services? So there is a way to measure in marketing. And I want you each to think about what your role is in marketing, because definitely people have this set mind about what is their role. If they're a salesperson, then they definitely know what their role is. But the point of today's webinar is that you have a lot of different touch points when someone is interfacing with your agency. So whether it is a direct service employee, one of your caregivers or nurses or social workers out meeting someone, whether it's in a client's home, whether it's in a networking situation, you've got lots of different opportunities to make a positive impression and to sell your agency. And so that this is the point today. And the other thing, and more from a branding standpoint, is marketing is being memorable for the right reasons. So a lot of positive marketing has to do with the reputation that your agency has, and also with how people perceive your agency. And when Amy's fond of talking about a brand essence, and so Amy, why don't you talk with our attendees today about what do you mean when you talk about a brand essence?
Sure. So a brand essence is really the promise that you make to customers. It's the simplest expression of what you want to do for them. And it's kind of artful in nature. So I chose a couple examples of brand essences that were part of a brainstorming session for a senior care provider. And I'm just going to read a few. One is helping you find your own personal future. Another is promoting each individual's personal possibilities. Another is helping people of age live better. Those are simple, very heartfelt expressions of what you promise to your customers. And that promise creates a nice benchmark to measure everything that everyone on the team does. So you want to be able to say, when I'm answering the phone, is how I'm doing that living up to that brand promise. So it's important to think about what is the promise that you make to customers. And if you haven't thought about that before, to really think about what promise you're making to customers, and choose one that you want to go with and measure what you're doing against that.
I would like to add a personal example, because those of you who don't know me may not know that I started and grew and ran for 17 years a private duty home care business in Louisville, Kentucky. And our brand promise was exceptional people meeting ordinary needs. And so that was something that we used throughout the history of our agency, as we grew it to have over 250 caregivers. And the key was what? Obviously, exceptional caregivers. So our focus in delivering what that brand promise, exceptional people meeting ordinary needs, was basically what we did. And we did that through training. We did that through what our caregivers looked like. We did that through all of the information and education that we put out into the community. So it is that delivery that solidifies the marketing and the branding. And some people don't really understand the power of that first impression and the power of branding and the power of professionalism, but it really does make a difference. I mean, think of anytime you are in a grocery store looking for something and you're in front of a wide range of choices, and start paying attention to how many times you either consciously gravitate to a brand that you know, or consciously gravitate to the store brand. And those different decisions will happen at different times. Well, the same thing happens in home care. People are more comfortable purchasing something that they understand. And if you have a good agency that's well branded and looks very professional, and you are actually delivering that professionalism, then you're delivering on your brand promise.
Right. I think what we in the industry call this is brand alignment. And if you look at these second 2 points, you want to make sure that your brand is aligned externally and internally. So you want to be able to have your employees understand your brand very well so that they can deliver on the promise that you're making. And externally, if you're offering a really professional service, you want all of your external facing materials and websites to also look very professional so that it matches the services that you're providing.
And this is just a way also to extend this with your entire team. Everyone that works for you has a role in marketing, and that goes back into every single thing that comes out of your office ought to look professional. So from your logo to all the materials you design, to letters that you write the clients, to your invoices, are they correct? Are they done in a format that's easy to read? And any way that someone interfaces with your agency, if they're looking at your website, if they're finding you on social media, and then the most important, of course, is your direct service personnel. Make certain that you know who you're hiring, what those people look like, what they dress like when they go to work, and how they're interfacing with your clients.
And if I can jump in for just a second, these examples that we have up are examples of companies that may offer really professional services, but they're not executing that same level of professionalism for their external brand alignment.
And I'm fond of saying, if you have your niece or your nephew or your next door neighbor or someone, or you designing your material and creating your logo, then unless your next door neighbor, nephew, and niece happen to be working for a very professional advertising agency or have a degree in that, then you really need to be seeking out professional help for that. And don't assume that because you're a fabulous nurse or a fabulous social worker, or you've been successful in running a business and now you're in home care as a business, don't think that those types of skills translate into that, because you really do need professional help generally to make that marketing look professional.
Well, you hear a lot that, people get a lot of referrals through word of mouth. And sometimes I get calls of, we have a great reputation, but nobody knows about us, and we're sending out brochures. But if those brochures or that marketing material is not memorable because it's low quality or because it just doesn't grab people, then it just blanks out of their mind. And suddenly you are doing that marketing without a purpose. So you're either creating a bad impression or you're creating no impression because they don't even remember your materials.
We have some photos of caregivers and their clients that we laugh about, because you see them consistently and repeatedly on lots of different information. So that's the other thing, is individualizing who you are, and that goes back to your brand essence and your brand promise. So it's all about talking the same talk with the same message, and then a commitment to why you're in business and why your home care business is the choice for that person that is seeking care. And this speaks directly to how you are communicating with the people that work for you, so that you have more than just your salesperson out there talking about what you do, talking about why you do it. Everyone on your team ought to know that. They ought to know the story of the company. They ought to know your brand essence. They ought to know your brand promise. They need to believe in that, and they need to have a vision for where your company is going to go in the future. And by the way, those of you who own your home care companies, have you shared your vision with your direct service employees? Do you share that vision when you have meetings, like all staff meetings? You may not have them in person, but you might have them virtually. But there's lots of opportunities to share that vision, from the time you orient someone to work for your company, through training that you have ongoing, through updating of credentials and all of the interfaces you might have with people, or with seeing them in the homes while they're caregiving for your clients.
Yes, and I would like to give a shout out to one of my past colleagues here named Kevin Harity, who was very fond of saying that putting things on paper makes a big difference because it makes it tangible, and it makes it real, and it makes it shareable. And one of the things that we help companies do is to build brand platforms where we are outlining what their vision is, what their strategic goals are, what their brand essence is, what their company story is, what their name means, what their tagline means. And then when we have put all of that together, we create a foundation for messages about their brand. And that results in a document that can be shared with anybody in the company, so that everyone's rallied around the same mission, the same message, and we're all on the same page when we're communicating with customers and with the public. And you create an internal culture of staff who can check that, can check each other on that, who are able to say, hey, I'm not sure if that's in line with our brand promise. Let's rethink that or tweak that to make it better.
Through the last goodness, I guess it's been 17 years now that I've had the marketing company that helps other home care businesses. And I was in Chicago actually one time, and I can tell the story because the company that had called me in is no longer in business because they didn't listen to me. But it was a harrowing experience of going into a physical setting that was very cramped and very messy and very loud, and everybody was yelling at each other over their desks, and it was very unpleasant, just the physical experience. So in that scenario, nobody was being treated nicely. I, as a guest, and actually a paid guest coming in, was not afforded any space or quiet or um, you know to do my job. And the woman who owned the company pulled out a image that she wanted to rebrand her company, and she pulled out this image that she had the marketing students at Northwestern University do for her home care company. And I actually laughed out loud, which was probably not polite and probably one of the reasons that they didn't listen to me later. But it was so funny because I've painted the picture of where the reality of this business, and this image was of an iris. You know, those Siberian irises that are so beautiful and so thin and so gorgeous and have one bloom at the end. And it was just this beautiful, striking image. It was quiet. It was elegant. It was sophisticated. And that was so not what I experienced. So that's an example of trying to create, I said, creating a silk purse out of a sow's ear. And but the idea is, had this company created a culture of treating each other nicely and of being respectful of the people that worked there, then it would have been a whole different scenario. I might have well seen how that a beautiful iris could have fit that picture, but it didn't. So as you're creating your culture, your company culture, identifying it, talking about it, then you can identify and nurture those employees that work for you, and then you can work with them to teach other people about the brand and to reinforce the brand and to share the brand. Amy, you want to come back and talk about enforcing the brand?
Sure. I think I'm going to do these backwards. So the second bullet point, from your logo to your company colors to your tagline, your marketing should resonate with all who work for you. I do think it's important to have some standards and some explanation behind what your tagline means and how your logo can be used, and to just give explanation to your staff about why that was chosen. Again, they should know the story behind what the logo means, what the colors are meant to inspire, as well as what your tagline says to customers. Marketing is a way to tell your story about who you are as a company and why you do what you do. And it needs to be threaded through everything that you do. That is why having a brand platform and a core set of messages about your company is important, because it allows you to have this library of messages to draw upon when you're creating other content about your company. It is your benchmark, so that you're always going back to that brand platform and those brand messages to make sure that when you're training people internally about your company and when you're communicating externally about your company, that you're using the messages that tell your story and differentiate you from your competition. Again, in an industry where you all do the same thing, it's who you are and why you do what you do that makes you a different and better than your competitor.
So let's sort of get down to some brass tacks here, excuse me. So how do you make this brand reinforcement happen? And how do you get your employees that work for you to all be marching in the same direction? And what are you going to do today as a result of attending this webinar and listening to us to start that process of integrating your marketing efforts, not just to your salespeople, but company-wide? And the first thing I think is you need to designate someone to implement the changes that you are going to need to make. And that can be either you, someone who's attending this webinar, or you can, as we said, we're recording this webinar, so you can actually have someone listen to the webinar and get the information that we're talking about today and have them tasked to implement the changes needed. And then you're going to need to really look at what infrastructure changes that you need to make. Is your branding professional? Is your website professional? Do you have collateral material that is branded to your website and to your company logo and images? Do you have uniforms or some way for your employees to look alike so that you can extend that company brand in that way? And then when you talk about including the team, this is going to take a lot of work to include the team. It's not a one-time process. This is something that you really have to do over a very extended time period, and it doesn't stop. It continues. The team has to understand your brand platform, your promise. They have to believe in the brand. If you are saying one thing and delivering another, as the example I gave about my horrendous experience in Chicago, I mean, everyone has to understand why you're doing it, what you're doing, and understand that brand promise. And that's where you get your brand advocates from. So you really do have to have a written brand platform for them. They have to understand it. They have to keep it. You have to reinforce it regularly throughout all of your operations. And you have to include that team in everything, again, from the orientation all the way through all the training and throughout the year. Excuse me. So anything that is being said about the company, excuse me, Amy, can you take over? I need to drink of water.
Sure. Yeah, again, there's two sides of a brand. There's what you say you do, and then there's what you actually do. And if you're not delivering on the promise that you make, then you have a disconnect. So you want to make sure that your staff understands that delivery solidifies any of the external marketing that you're doing. You know, if you promise to do things on your website and in your brochures and in your ads, then it's their job to deliver that. And having that external, internal brand alignment is the ultimate in marketing. It means everything's working together. Everybody wants to work for a company who delivers what they promise, and everyone wants to do business with a company that delivers what they promise. And then including the team in the marketing efforts, explaining to them who might refer business to a home care company, and what do those referral partners look for? What do they expect from you when they call, when they send you a client? And how can you deliver on that? How can you be a part of delivering on that? Because it's not just the salesperson who's part of that process. It's everybody who delivers the service once that referral is received.
And I'd like to say, think about those opportunities when the caregiver is in the client's home. If the client is having something delivered from a durable medical equipment business, that's a perfect opportunity, A, for that caregiver to make a positive impression, and B, for the caregiver to make a contact with someone who might be in a position to refer for home care. Maybe the next stop for that durable medical equipment delivery person is someone who who is getting a walker and should have home care but doesn't. So the same with pharmacy delivery people. The same with when caregivers are accompanying clients to appointments, whether it's a hairdresser or a physician's appointment. Those are opportunities for the caregiver, A, to make a positive impression and extend your brand, and B, to make a contact that might be someone who could be a potential referral source in the future. And then the other thing about understanding what other services are offered, you may have geriatric care management services that you offer. You might have wake up tuck-in services you offer. You might have some skilled medical services that you offer. You have to make certain that your team understands not just what their role is in terms of servicing the client and performing the duties they're performing, but what other things do you sell that the client might be interested in. Many home care agencies also have partnerships or sell the emergency medical response systems and those PERS systems. And so just understanding what the whole offerings of the company are, and having the caregivers really understand when is it appropriate to mention those things and who's the correct person within the company that would then contact the client to upsell them on that. Marissa, do you want to talk about some of these specifics, because you do so much of this in the MOST program? How do you include your team with some of your collateral and information and processes?
Well, and I think a quarterly employee newsletter is something that is often overlooked because everyone is focused on reaching out to inquiries and prospects, referral sources. But don't neglect those caregivers, because you need to let them know about new services, remind them of how to upsell, make them feel proud to be a part of your company, remind them of your brand essence. It's like Merrily said, it's something that's ongoing, and a quarterly newsletter is a perfect way to do that, as well as help to make them feel valued because you are communicating with them. It's a great place to do a caregiver highlight, caregiver of the quarter, something like that as well. And if you have events or promotions or awards, those are great times to reinforce that brand and the quality of your agency to those caregivers and direct care staff.
We've had
media. I guess we should talk about the media.
I think we should. I was going to say we've had good luck with media showcasing what agencies are doing as they are receiving the awards or providing an extraordinary service to someone.
Yeah, and I'd like to just add that, there's things that you can create for your staff, to carry with them, to remind them about what the brand is designed to deliver. You can do pocket cards, if they're coming into your office for an orientation or, a meeting to get education, you can have your brand promise, displayed prominently in that meeting room. There's a lot that you can do to kind of keep incorporating that. Studies show that adult learners have to have things repeated at least 5 times before they start to be integrated and can be repeated back to people. So you want to make them as successful as they can be by giving them the opportunities to keep incorporating that information, and you're repeating it for them, and you're rewarding them when you see it happen. So when you see somebody conducting on-brand behavior, that you call attention to that and reward them for that. Send them a thank you note. Tell others that they did a good job and they're a good example of a brand advocate.
We used to actually, when I had my home care business, give bonuses when we saw someone extending the brand or being a good brand advocate. And it was just a one-time bonus, and it wasn't that much. I think it was a $10 bonus. But that $10, if you think about, had that brand advocate action either gotten us a fabulous new caregiver or gotten us an inquiry for a client, it's worth it. Those $10 bonuses were literally worth their weight in gold. One
Yeah.
and one of the
Um,
things, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to add one more thing. I think you can also take your brand promise a little bit further and create some bullet points underneath it that are what you think are desired behaviors that would help deliver that promise. And it could be any number of things. It could be good listening skills, fast response time, making sure to smile when you answer the phone, making eye contact with people when you're talking to them, um, you know, following up, making sure you get them more information on the topic that they asked about specifically. Think about creating a list of these are on-brand behaviors in addition to the brand essence.
Um, the fact that the direct service provider is the one that goes to the house most often, then that is a crucial thing to think about, and that I want you all to take home with and decide how you're going to deal with that, because the nurse assessor or the social worker or whoever the first person is that comes and does the assessment and actually opens the case or starts service, whatever your terminology is for when someone becomes a client, you normally will arm those people with all types of material and leave behinds. I do want to say some of the ones that work beautifully. Number one is a refrigerator magnet. That is seems like a minor thing, but I will tell you, if someone has sporadic service or has used you one time, for instance, as a been released from the hospital and you've been there for a short time period, when something else happens that triggers a need and that refrigerator magnet is there and it makes an easy call, that's a very, very easy thing to do. So there's just some little tiny things, but also the direct service provider should be armed also with material and leave behinds. And when you are doing, again, starting with orientation, going through training, and if you are using any type of marketing material or doing any kind of events or having any kind of awards or anything that you are doing externally as a company, your direct service personnel ought to know about that. Now, you can use the quarterly newsletter to tell them about that. You can use any other kind of way that you communicate with them to tell them about that. But as you create material for specific types of clients or for specific services that you may offer, then that's the kind of thing you need to share with your direct care staff. The other thing is having them have a business card. Marissa, do you want to talk about the business card, that how it helps with referrals and with recruitment?
Absolutely. And it's not a traditional business card that will have their name and contact information on it. You can have a lot of times caregivers will come in contact with somebody that they think might make a good caregiver. And what's a great way for them to have them get in touch with your company is to have those little business card-sized cards that, just say, hey, I think you'd make a great caregiver, and here's the information for how you can get in touch with someone at our agency and see if this is an opportunity you'd like to pursue. It's branded, it has the contact information on there, and it's easy for them to hang on to in a wallet or a purse and hand out.
I think the other thing is, and we talked about this earlier, but making certain that your direct service personnel knows what the company does, knows all of the information about their brand promise, but also has them know the contacts within the company. So if someone needs to talk to someone within the company about something, that they can efficiently get them to the right person at the right time. So, it's really rethinking how you communicate with your direct service workers and how you add in that idea of marketing to all of the people that work in your business, not just your salespeople and not just the staff that is in the office. This is just some different ways that we use for companies, and if we include the employees as a part of that team, to make certain that if a company newsletter is being sent out, whether it's mailed or whether it's an e-newsletter, that you also send that to your employees, because they really ought to know the information that you're sending out. After all, you might be showcasing one of them, you might be showcasing recipes, you might be showcasing different types of equipment or ideas for caregiving with people in their own homes. So you really do need to make certain that you are communicating anything you're doing externally with all of your employee base. And then I mentioned the bonus for keeping on brand. There's also, you can pay a bonus for employees who refer clients, and you just figure your break-even point. Is it at 10 hours, 20 hours, 40 hours? What is it? And when an employee does actually refer a client, then showcase that, but also make it come home in their paycheck. Give them a bonus for referring that client, because if you figure out what it costs you to get a new client, it's generally pretty expensive. So if you can get your direct service employees to start recognizing clients, and I'll tell you, there's lots of opportunities. It's funny because, again, it's been 17 years I've been doing this. So 17 years ago when I quit working directly in my own home care business, but the underground economy was there even then. And there's lots of opportunities for caregivers as they run into these scenarios where people are running these underground businesses. Lots of opportunities for them to bring on people that are good caregivers and would prefer to work for an agency and be legitimate and have taxes taken out, or clients who really do need more help. They've passed the capacity of just a casual group of people to be able to care for them, and they really need to move into a more structured environment. So there are lots of opportunities out there if your employees understand how it will benefit them, and also how having your service will benefit the clients. So this is really just sort of a wrap up here in terms of the things that you really do need to look at as a result of today's webinar and to think about. Look at your communication and education structure, and are you including all of your internal staff and direct service workers in that? Number one. And number two, are you doing professional communication and education? Because that is so crucial in today's market to differentiate and to help that buyer when they're in that psychological journey in terms of searching for home care. And then also, how can you incorporate what you sell and how you are branded into your internal communication processes? And have you done that? And if not, do you need professional help to do that? So my challenge to you is, for 2016, see if you can't make marketing a total team effort, and put those measurements in place so you can see the difference a well-coordinated team can make versus what you've done previously. So Marissa, Amy, would you like to state anything before we open this up for questions?
One thing I'll just kind of say as an overview, a lot of times branding can seem to some people somewhat esoteric, and we had a client recently who we've been talking to about branding for a while, and they finally said, all right, I think we should do this. And after they got their brand platform in, they said, oh, I wish we'd done this sooner. This is so great. And it really brought focus to the team, and it brought just those points that they really needed to help everybody understand who they were, why they do it and what they do.
Well, that's the
I
one.
would,
That's the one thing too that makes my heart warm is when I have a company, and I know Marissa and Amy, you can think of this, as you said, that have happened many times where someone lets us rebrand them. They have a fabulous service, but they're not showing the world that they have a fabulous service. So then we rebrand them and actually pull out what it is that makes that service fabulous, and the results are just amazing.
yeah, the richness of how you are different from another home care company is contained in your story. And it's not always easy to write that story. But when it's written and there's concrete messages around it, the depth that it adds to your messaging and to your website and your brochure is just, it's unbelievable. And we have had several clients just say, now I get it. Now I understand how important this is. And, it's made a difference in how my employees understand my company and how I speak to my customers.
And I am a professionally trained social worker. Marketing has been a lifelong quest for me because of the 17 years I was in my home care business, and now the 17 years I've been in this marketing business. But I will say that it's generally nurse-owned home care agencies or social worker-owned home care agencies who are doing fabulous jobs, but they really haven't realized the importance of professional help in terms of telling their story to their public. So I encourage you all to give us a call. Okay. We have some questions, but the really only one that's for the public, and that is, would you recommend highlighting a caregiver of the month in a monthly newsletter? We probably all have different opinions on this. Marissa, do you want to try that?
Um, even if the newsletter is going out to referral sources and prospects, I think it's a great way to show that you appreciate your caregivers and you appreciate your staff. So yes.
Yeah. Yes, and what I would add to that is that if you're going to highlight a caregiver of the month, take that opportunity to repeat what your brand wants to bring to the people that you serve, both your clients and your referral sources, and highlight how that person delivered on that.
And I would add that the photo accompanying the caregiver of the month should look good. So that caregiver, when you take that photo, if you're taking it with an iPhone in a dark client's home, then rethink that, because someone is going to look at that picture and the question they're going to ask is, would I want this person in my home caring for my mother or father or husband? And so that caregiver is a good-hearted person, that caregiver has gone above and beyond probably to help a client in a specific situation, but you need to capture the essence of that caregiver as well and make certain that photo extends your brand promise as well. And the caregiver doesn't have to be beautiful, but the photo has to show warmth, so that message is going along with the visual.
Yeah, and it's okay to ask somebody, to look their best for a photo.
Here's another, goodness, we're getting lots of questions here. Let's see if I can. All right. What is the best way to reach field employees? A quarterly newsletter is great, but how do you get to them at the way that they will read it? It's a habit. the distributive workforce, because that's what home care is, you have to come up with a way to reach them. So you can do it in a variety of ways. You can set up phone tree calls, so you can call them for things. You can text them. You can send them the quarterly newsletter, either in physically or email, but you can also double check that they read it. Put something in that quarterly newsletter that asks a question, and if they answer that question, they get a $5 bonus on their paycheck or something. So try to create ways that they will be interested in reading it. The other thing is you should be doing training of your caregivers, and the training for the most part is probably going to be online because it's hard for everyone to get together at one time. So use that training opportunity as a way to extend messaging to them. So as they're taking training, anything that you want for them to understand, or the information that they need, make certain that they get it. But put in process a place that they have to actually respond that they've done what you ask them to do. And if it takes giving them an incentive to do that, then I would say give them that incentive. This is a positive. I don't think I need to read that, but thank you. So that says, well, I'll go ahead and read it. I like your recommendations about engaging employees and using them as champions and highlighting them in the newsletter or honoring with affordable cash awards. Marketing doesn't have to be expensive to begin the process. And then I got a little pat on the back, and you did too, ladies. Thank you. Great job on the presentation today. So that was from one of our state association executive directors, and someone I'm very fond of. So thank you for that. That ends the questions. Marissa, Amy, do you have anything that you would like to say in closing?
Just if you think of any questions after the webinar, please feel free to email us or give us a call. We'd be happy to answer them.
Fabulous, and thank you so much for your attendance today. And again, in probably 15 minutes, this will be uploaded to maybe an hour, it depends, to our Core Cubed website. And whoops, looks like I might have just gotten another question. Do you? I don't see it. Okay, all right. We will end it. So if I've missed you, we'll get to it later. Thank you so much, and everyone have a great day and Happy New Year. Hopefully 2016 will be the beginning of a wonderful new adventure for you and your agency. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.